What if I told you that right now, in your very own home, there might be something quietly working against your peace, your family, and even your spirit, and you don't even realize it? We often think the world around us is purely physical, solid walls, wooden tables, books, paintings, but the truth is, the world is also deeply spiritual. Every single thing carries an energy, and whether we notice it or not, some objects can carry a darkness that slips into our lives without knocking at the door. Now, some people laugh at that idea. They'll shrug and say, it's just a trinket, just a souvenir, just a book. But here's what most don't understand: what you allow into your home, you also allow into your life, and even into your spirit. An object is never just an object. It has a history, it has an influence, and sometimes it can be a doorway. Think about it. If someone gave you a gift and you later discovered it was stolen, wouldn't it feel different in your hands? There's a heaviness that comes with wrongdoing, even if you weren't the one who did it. The same is true spiritually. If something was created with dark intentions, used in evil rituals, or designed to represent something unholy, then it carries more than just its physical form. It carries a presence. People often ask me, how can an object hold spiritual power? It's not alive. True. But a spirit doesn't need something to be alive to attach itself. Across cultures and centuries, people have dedicated objects to spiritual forces, anointed them for rituals, and infused them with intent. Whether you believe in these practices or not, the spiritual realm operates under laws that don't need your permission to exist. Maybe you've experienced this without even knowing it. Have you ever stepped into a house or a hotel room and immediately felt uneasy? Nothing was visibly wrong, yet the air felt heavy, almost pressing against you. That wasn't your imagination. That was your spirit sensing what your eyes couldn't see. If a place can carry an atmosphere, so can the objects inside it. So, what kinds of things should you be concerned about? Start with anything tied to the occult, the demonic, or dark spiritual practices. Objects used in witchcraft, seances, or rituals can absolutely carry something with them. But it's not always the obvious items. Sometimes it's the overlooked ones: a book promoting sorcery, a statue bought on vacation that honors a false god, a piece of jewelry marked with symbols you don't fully understand. Here's the danger. Once something becomes a spiritual gateway, it doesn't just sit there. It begins influencing the atmosphere of your home. You might start noticing tension in your family, a heaviness in the air, strange disturbances, or unsettling nightmares. You may dismiss it as stress, coincidence, or even your imagination, but when darkness has been given access, it will eventually make itself known. The good news? You don't have to live with it. You have the authority to decide what stays in your home. And when you remove those objects and close those doors, the change can be immediate. Darkness cannot stay where it's not welcome. Right now, you might be thinking about something in your home that's always given you a strange feeling. Maybe you've ignored it, maybe you've brushed it off. But I'm telling you, trust that sense. If something unsettles your spirit, there's a reason. Remove it, cleanse your home, dedicate your space to light instead of darkness, and watch peace return. Not everything in your home belongs there. Not everything on your shelf is innocent. Some things carry a presence, an attachment, a weight you can't always see, but you can certainly feel. You don't have to be involved in witchcraft or the occult for something to affect your life. You don't even have to believe in it. If an object has been tied to dark forces, it doesn't need your permission to bring that influence with it. And here's the question: do you truly know the history of everything in your home? Where it came from, what it represents, whose hands have held it before yours? I'm not saying every antique or old decoration is cursed, but some objects have been intentionally dedicated to darkness. And when you invite something like that inside, you're inviting more than wood, metal, or cloth. You're inviting the weight it carries. The spiritual realm is not a fairy tale. It's not superstition. It's not a game. It's real. And if something has been crafted, used, or prayed over with dark intent, it becomes a doorway, an invitation. And that invitation is one you don't want to leave open. And as we just saw, not every object sitting quietly in your home is truly harmless. Some can be carrying something far heavier than their weight. I've heard countless stories from people who struggled with unexplained tension in their homes, a heaviness in the air. Restless nights, disturbing dreams, all beginning the moment a certain item came into their possession. And time after time, the moment that object was removed, the darkness seemed to leave with it. People often protest, "But I only bought it for decoration. I didn't know what it was." Let me be clear, ignorance does not change reality. If something was crafted with evil intent, that intent doesn't simply vanish because you were unaware. If an item was prayed over or dedicated by someone serving darkness, that spiritual influence does not dissolve just because you didn't realize it. The moment you feel uneasy, the moment something about that object stirs discomfort in your spirit, you must pay attention. I've met people who kept certain items for years, believing they were harmless, only to later discover that this very object was the source of the oppression in their home. A strange doll that seemed to shift positions on its own. A decorative trinket from a foreign market that filled the house with unrest. A book that appeared harmless, but carried far more than mere words on its pages. When those items were finally removed, physically taken out of the house, something changed. The atmosphere shifted, the heaviness lifted. It was as if a chain had been broken. Some of you right now are thinking of an object in your own home that has always made you feel uneasy. Maybe you've brushed that feeling aside, calling it paranoia, but let me tell you, that check in your spirit is there for a reason. If something unsettles you, it is not by accident. If you've been sensing tension, heaviness, or a shadow you can't explain, you need to ask yourself, what have I unknowingly welcomed in? The enemy doesn't always walk through the front door. Sometimes, he slips in disguised within the very things we bring inside. He hides in the ordinary, the decorative, the seemingly harmless. The only way to reclaim your home is to close every open door, to remove every item that serves as a foothold. Every object that was never meant to be there in the first place. We often bring things in without a second thought, a gift from a friend, a souvenir from a trip, an antique passed down through generations. They appear innocent, they appear harmless, but not everything enters your home empty. Some things carry a weight you cannot see, a presence you did not invite, and an influence you were never meant to live under. Most people never consider this truth. Objects have history. They've been places. They've been handled by hands you don't know. And sometimes they've been used in ways you'd never imagine. You might think you found an old mirror at a thrift store, but do you know where it's been? Do you know what words were spoken in front of it? Who owned it before you? Maybe you have a piece of jewelry passed down in your family, but do you know its story? Do you know what kind of life the person who wore it lived? We like to think the spiritual and the physical are separate worlds, but they are far more connected than most people realize. Spirits can attach to places, to people, and yes, even to things. Those who practice dark arts know this well. They intentionally dedicate objects for their rituals, using them as conduits. They place curses on items with full understanding that whoever possesses them will also inherit the spiritual influence attached. And here's the reality. You don't have to be involved in witchcraft for it to affect you. You don't have to believe in it for it to have an impact. If an object has been marked in the spiritual realm, used in darkness, it carries that darkness wherever it goes. And if it enters your home, it brings that presence into the very place where you and your family sleep, eat, and live. I've had people come to me saying, "I don't know what's going on in my house. Ever since I brought this in, things have felt off." They describe tension, arguments, disturbing dreams, strange noises, shadows moving, and other things they cannot explain. And over again. The moment the object is removed, the disturbance stops. It's like a pressure lifts. Like something oppressive has been forced out. That is not coincidence. That is cause and effect. Some of you may have items in your home right now that you bought secondhand because they were a great deal or looked interesting. Maybe they had an intriguing backstory. But I have to ask you, do you truly know where they came from? Do you know what they were a part of? If it was connected to anything unholy, if it was ever used in a ritual or tied to something demonic, you do not want it in your home. You do not want it near your children. You do not want it anywhere in your life. And this isn't just about haunted objects. It's about anything carrying a spirit of oppression. There are statues and carvings created to honor false gods. There are books and artifacts once used in spiritual ceremonies. There are paintings, pieces of jewelry, and figurines that look completely normal, yet carry a presence you can feel, an atmosphere that changes your home in subtle but undeniable ways. You can't always tell by looking, but you can tell by how it makes you feel, by the shifts in your atmosphere, by the things that start happening only after it arrives. You don't have to live under that influence. As we just discussed, you don't have to live under the influence of something that doesn't belong in your home. You have authority over what stays and what goes. And when you sense that something isn't right, when you feel that heaviness, that unease, that subtle darkness clinging to an object, don't ignore it. Remove it, get it out, break its hold by severing its connection to your space. Because the enemy is always looking for a way in. And often, he doesn't come boldly through the front door. Instead, he slips in quietly, hidden in the things we carry inside, the items we keep without a second thought, the decorations we assume are harmless. But if something is disturbing your peace, if it's shifting the atmosphere of your home, you don't need it. You don't owe it a place in your life. Let it go. When you cleanse your home, when you intentionally remove what doesn't belong and take back authority over your space, you will feel the difference. Peace will return, the heaviness will lift, and you'll walk in the freedom that was meant for you from the very beginning. There are items in many of our homes right now that we never think twice about: decorations hanging on the wall, artwork on the shelves, patterns and symbols on clothing, small trinkets collected over the years. They seem completely innocent, but not everything that looks harmless truly is. Not every design is just a design. Some symbols carry a deeper meaning. Some imagery holds a darker presence. And some things were never meant to exist in a home dedicated to the light. You see, symbols have power. Imagery carries influence. That's why, throughout history, in every culture and every religion, they've been used in spiritual practice. What you place in your home, what you allow to surround you, is speaking something into the atmosphere. And if you aren't careful, you might be displaying something that invites darkness instead of pushing it away. Some might say, well, I didn't put it there for that reason, so it doesn't mean anything. But meaning isn't erased by ignorance. If a symbol was created to represent something demonic, if a piece of art was inspired by darkness, if an object was crafted to honor something unholy, then it carries that purpose no matter what you believe. Think about it. You wouldn't bring a cup of poison into your home and say, I don't believe it's poison, so it won't hurt me. The poison doesn't need your permission to do what it was designed to do. In the same way, a symbol dedicated to darkness doesn't need your belief to carry the influence it was made to have. Some of you may have things in your home right now that, if you really took a closer look, aren't as innocent as they seem. Maybe it's a piece of art that has always made you uneasy but you couldn't explain why. Maybe it's a statue or carving created to honor a false god, a foreign spirit, or something you don't even recognize. Maybe it's clothing covered in symbols you never really understood, you just thought it looked cool. Those things have meaning, and whether or not you meant to invite something in, they can still bring a presence with them. I've known people who kept certain objects in their homes for years, never realizing the effect they were having: a strange, unsettling energy in the room, nightmares that refused to go away, tension in the family that appeared out of nowhere. And yet, when they finally removed that object, whether it was a piece of artwork, a statue, or an item marked with a strange symbol, the atmosphere shifted. Peace returned. The oppression lifted. That is not coincidence. That is spiritual law. The enemy is subtle. He knows most people won't openly invite something evil into their homes. So he hides it, in the background of a painting, in the fine details of a piece of jewelry, in the symbols of pop culture. He places it where people don't think to look. And the more you live surrounded by it, the more desensitized you become. Before long, it fades into the background, but even if you stop noticing it, its influence remains. And let me be clear, this is not about paranoia. It's not about living in fear of everything around you. It's about awareness. It's about discernment. It's about recognizing that some things do not belong in the home of someone who wants to live in peace. If something carries a meaning rooted in darkness, why would you want it hanging on your wall? Why would you want it sitting on your shelf? Why would you want it woven into your clothing? You must be intentional about what you allow into your space. Because your home isn't just a physical structure, it's a spiritual atmosphere. If you fill it with things designed to glorify darkness, you shouldn't be surprised when that darkness begins to manifest in different ways. But here's the good news: you don't have to tolerate it. You don't have to let it stay. You have the authority to take back control over your home. Some of you right now are thinking about a certain object in your house that has never sat right with you. Maybe you've had that feeling for a long time but ignored it. Maybe you're only now realizing it's not just decoration, it's an open door. Whatever it is, I challenge you. Remove it. Get rid of it. Break that connection. When you do, you'll notice the change. Peace will return. The heaviness will leave, and you'll know, without any doubt, that you made the right choice. And here's something most people don't realize. This principle doesn't just apply to objects you can touch. It applies to the things you consume, the music you listen to, the movies you watch, the books you read, the games you play. People say, it's just entertainment, it's just a song, it's just a story. But nothing is ever just anything. Everything carries something, everything has an influence, and whatever you allow into your mind, into your home, is shaping your spirit, whether you recognize it or not. There's a reason why music can change your mood instantly, lifting you up or dragging you down. There's a reason why certain stories linger in your thoughts long after you've turned the last page or watched the final scene. Influence is real. As we mentioned earlier, everything you bring into your home, from physical objects to images, carries an influence. It will either invite light in, or open the door to darkness. And this doesn't just apply to what you can see, but also to what you hear, read, and watch every single day. Think about this. Why can a single song take you from a peaceful mood to sudden irritation? Why can a movie make your heart race, flood you with adrenaline, and then leave disturbing images that haunt your mind long after the screen goes dark? It's because entertainment is never neutral. It always carries a spirit, and whether that spirit is good or evil depends entirely on the intent behind its creation. I'm not saying every song, every movie, or every book is bad, but the truth is, some are created to glorify darkness, to make what belongs to the demonic seem familiar, to make evil look like harmless fun, to turn spells or witchcraft into something ordinary, even appealing. And the longer you expose yourself to it, the more numb you become. What should alarm you instead becomes just entertainment, just imagination, nothing serious. But that is exactly how the enemy works. He doesn't knock on your door with a big red warning sign that says, "Danger." He comes disguised as something exciting, captivating. People watch horror films about demons and think it's just a made-up story. Yet they wonder why they start having nightmares. Why they suddenly feel uneasy in their own home. Why they hear strange noises in the night. You listen to music filled with anger, violence, rebellion, and then wonder why you're constantly irritable, tense, and plagued by negative thoughts. You play video games that glorify sorcery, turning curses and magic into fun, and then find the atmosphere in your home growing heavy. Your children having nightmares, your family relationships filled with tension and division. Many people object. I don't believe in that stuff. I'm just watching for fun. But here's the thing. Truth doesn't depend on whether you believe it or not. You can step into fire and tell yourself, I don't believe it's hot, but you'll still get burned. In the same way, if you open the door to darkness through your entertainment, it will affect you whether you believe in it or not. Some people have experienced this firsthand. Turning off a certain song and instantly feeling relief. Stopping a certain genre of movies and realizing the atmosphere in their home feels lighter. Removing books or games that glorify the occult and suddenly being able to sleep peacefully again. That's not coincidence. That's a spiritual law. Whatever you allow into your mind and bring into your home will either invite light or invite darkness. You cannot fill your life with things that glorify evil and still expect to live in peace. It's impossible. So ask yourself, is this feeding my soul? Or is it poisoning it? Is it drawing me closer to truth? Or is it opening doors I don't actually want open? If something is born out of darkness, glorifies what is unclean, or promotes things that go against the peace you long for, why give it a place in your life? Some people hear this and immediately think of something in their home. Maybe an item they've felt uneasy about for a long time but tried to ignore. Or maybe they've already seen its negative effects but reassured themselves. It's probably nothing. Let me be clear, it's not nothing. And you don't have to live under its influence any longer. You can change. You can close that door. When you remove what doesn't belong, peace will return, darkness will leave, and you'll realize the real power of controlling what's allowed into your life. The problem is, many people think that as long as they're not actively participating in occult rituals like seances, using a Ouija board, or reciting spells, they're safe. But the enemy doesn't always need a formal invitation. A little compromise, a little tolerance, is often enough to give him a foothold. And one of the most common ways people unknowingly give darkness that foothold is by holding on to things they should have gotten rid of long ago. And it's not always the obvious stuff like demonic images or occult symbols. Sometimes it's sentimental items tied to a past you've tried to walk away from. Maybe it's a gift from someone who should no longer have a place in your life. Maybe it's something you've kept not because it brings peace, but because you simply don't want to let go. The truth is, not everything in your home is just an object. Some carry attachments, spiritual, emotional, even soul ties you're unaware of. I've spoken with people who couldn't understand why they kept being pulled back into old lifestyles, old mindsets, or negative influences they thought were gone. But when we looked closer, we found the links were still there. Love letters from a sinful, damaging relationship, jewelry given by someone who led them into darkness, clothing tied to a time when they turned away from God. I've seen people end up entangled in things they never should have been a part of, and every time they looked at those objects, every time they touched them, whether they realized it or not, they were keeping that door just slightly open. Some of you have items in your home right now that are tied to a past you've been desperately trying to break free from. And you wonder, why do I still feel so weighed down? Why do those old temptations keep creeping back in? Why does it feel like I can't fully step into the freedom I know is meant for me? Let me ask you, have you truly cut the ties? Have you removed every single remnant of that old life? Or are you still holding on to a piece of it? Because if you're holding on to even one piece, a part of you is still connected. And it's not just personal items. Sometimes it's generational things too. Some of you are holding on to objects that have been in your family for years. Things you've never questioned because they belong to your grandmother, or your great uncle, or maybe even a relative you never met. But here's the truth. Not everything that's been passed down should be kept. Just as blessings can be passed from generation to generation, so can bondage. If an object was used for something unholy, if it was tied to something that invited darkness, if it was part of something that never should have been in your bloodline to begin with, then keeping it is only keeping that chain in place. People think, oh, it's just a family heirloom. But if that heirloom carries a spirit of oppression, if it's connected to something that opposed the light, then it's not just a piece of history. It's a link to something you were never supposed to inherit. And until you break that connection, until you remove it from your home, that influence will remain. I've seen people put such objects outside their home, throw them away, even burn them, and immediately feel a difference. Like a weightlifting, like something finally breaking. And that's exactly what happened, because when you take away the enemy's foothold, he loses his right to stay. When you remove the things that carry a dark attachment, you also remove the influence that came with them. Some of you right now feel a pull in your spirit. You already know exactly what needs to go. Maybe you've known for a while but hesitated. Maybe you've convinced yourself it's not a big deal. But let me tell you this, if it's disturbing your peace, if it's keeping you tied to something you were meant to leave behind, if it's been sitting in your home carrying a presence you don't want anymore, it's time to let it go. Because when you finally remove every last remnant of what doesn't belong, that's when true freedom begins. Everything we allow into our homes, objects, symbols, entertainment, even sentimental keepsakes, has the power to shape the spiritual atmosphere we live in. Darkness doesn't always come in through obvious doors. Sometimes it sneaks in through the things we tolerate, the things we ignore, the things we assume are harmless. But when our eyes are opened, when we can clearly see what doesn't belong, we have the power to shut those doors, break those ties, and take back authority over our home. You don't have to live under oppression. You don't have to tolerate unease, fear, or heaviness in your own space. Peace is possible, but you have to choose it. So, take a look around. Ask yourself, what needs to go? And when you remove what doesn't belong, when you cleanse your home of anything that carries darkness, you will notice the difference. You will feel the shift, and you will finally walk in the freedom that was always meant for you.